All right, we're going to call this meeting to order, the Committee of the Whole, October 24th. Roll call, all councilors are present except for Council Perizzotti. Calendar and communications, we have the FYE 2017 budget presentation by Public Works and Police Departments.
That's been held off until we had moved some other things for Police and Public Works to the next COW.
Okay.
So that's being moved to then.
All right, I'll cross that right off. Anybody have any calendar communications? Yes, Karen.
I just wanted to report, and along with the town manager and I think Bonnie Nault attended the grand opening of Thayer Mahan Incorporated, their new offices. They had a ribbon cutting there on Thursday, and it's a very interesting business, and I welcome them to Groton.
Very good. All right. Someone like to move the minute? Oh, I'm sorry, Diane.
I attended the Groton Business Association's breakfast, and there's a lot of exciting things going on page, and I'm very excited about it. Thank you. It was very interesting to see all the ideas being thrown around. Also, I did receive a telephone call regarding the Groton ambulance that was in the paper, that it cost $26,000 to do the improvements, and a local builder friend of mine said that that was an awful exorbitant amount of money for the improvements being made. So I just wonder if something like that could go out to bid in the future.
Well, it already went out to bid. Actually, there was a delay on doing that roof because a couple different contractors along the way had to pull out for various reasons. So they started with several bidders and they kept working their way through. So this wasn't originally the lowest bid, but it ended up being the lowest bid by the time a couple others dropped out. But it did go out to bid.
All right, thank you.
Bonnie?
I'd just like to add that I was at the Groton Business Association and the Thayer Mahan, and really happy they're here. On the ambulance building, I don't know what the sequence of the bidding was, but a contractor friend of mine had offered to do that roof for free. And I had given that info to Marco.
He offered to do it for free?
Yes.
Well, if he wants to do some work.
We have other buildings.
And we were told that it was
Gary?
already.
Yeah, the town manager. So Gary's going to present the public works budget at a later meeting. Is that?
At the next COW. In terms of last year, in terms of they came out good on their budget, and he was just going to come and talk about that.
It's okay. What I would like to know is I think that some of a lot of utilities go into the public works department budget, and I think he's pushed some of them out on other departments because of his budget cuts. I kind of like to see how much of that was done, because I mean we're still paying for the utilities in the other departments, so I'd like to see how much of that was done. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Would someone like to move the minutes?
I would. I'll move the minutes of
I'll
October
second.
10th.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you, Harry. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8 to 0. Anybody have any unfinished business? Great.
I don't know if it's unfinished business, but just the order of the new business that they're coming up here. Should we consider doing the litigation first, since I think councils are here already? Like having them potentially sit around for an hour or two?
Well, I think
It's the third item in right now. The other two should be short, but
yeah.
Mike had asked, Dr. Grenier had asked to come, we'd talked about having him come and give a quick update, just like 5-minute thing at the beginning, and the other thing should only be a 2-minute thing.
Okay. Thanks.
So that brings us to our first item, 2017-0226, Superintendent of Groton Public Schools update. And Dr. Grenier is here, and I think this is an effort on the town manager and the council's part to try to integrate and update and communicate more with the city, the Board of Ed, the town directors. So.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I did. I asked John. I appreciate the opportunity. I'll try to come once a month to this third Tuesday, fourth been a long one. So let me just hop into this. A little bit of just highlights of what's been happening. We, as you know, in June we closed an elementary school, so we eliminated several teaching positions, 18 positions, school secretary, a couple of custodians, and all that in terms of reassigning the children went really quite well. What we're experiencing now, now that the school year has begun, is that there are, when we originally thought where would we put 300 children, we of course initially said we need approximately 15 classrooms, so we sort of scurried around and found the 15 classrooms. What we're starting to see right now is that in some of the special areas, for example, special education, frankly, we hadn't really thought about that. So we have some special education teachers that have, at Charles Barnum, for example, have very large caseload. So we're trying to work with that and deal with the shortfalls. We had a principal opening. Mr. Jones retired at Westside, and Mr. Katecki, who was the long-term 10-year assistant principal, has taken over. And we are right now interviewing, in fact, today, interviewing some of the 98 candidates who applied for the Westside assistant principal. We got the largest pool of candidates I've ever experienced in my 30 years. So, as I said to the committee, if we don't get a really good one, shame on us. We've got plenty. 3 grants that I want to mention. One is an ongoing one. The Department of Defense education activity, if you have more than 25% of the children attend your school, a school, it's school-based. They are eligible for a grant through the Department of Defense. This does not impact aid, which comes from the Federal Education Department, but so we applied for a literacy grant 3 years ago, and we were selected and awarded $1 million grant. So for the prior 2 years, we invited professors from Columbia University Teachers College to come in and do a writing workshop. And this year, while we're continuing the writing workshops, we've instituted readers workshops, and that I've been to a couple of sessions so far. It's been really well received, and it's really engaging the kids in lots of not only nonfiction literature, but the whole range, the whole gamut. It's going really great. But last spring, we saw that we could have been eligible, were potentially eligible for another Department of Defense education activity grant. And we applied, and were selected for a $1.25 million grant. It's a 5-year grant that will pay for basically professional development for our math program. Actually some tutors, but mostly embedded professional development for the teachers. And so that's begun, and it's really exciting. We didn't realize that we would be able to be eligible for both of these, but we got them, and we're delighted. And then the other thing was, actually last fall, we knew we were trying to create more magnet opportunities for kids within our district. And I saw that there was a grant, this one was a federal education grant, called the Magnet School Assistance Program, MSAP. And we applied, and September 27th, we were awarded a $4 million grant that will allow us to do basically 3 things: to turn Westside into a STEM middle school, to turn Cutler into a STEM arts and humanities school with partnerships with Mystic Seaport, Eugene O'Neill Theater, Mystic Museum of Art, and to create both of those schools to be International Baccalaureate MYP, middle year program schools. So we are hard at work at that. We actually have the money. It's a 5-year grant, but we get $1 million for the first year, which will allow us to convert the 2 middle schools. So in September, any children, any middle school children in Groton can go to either of the middle schools. Well, it'd be a lottery, to be truthful, because we can't just open it up completely. But we have in there also a couple $100,000 for buses, so you can imagine the busing situation. So that will be a big step for us. But last night, the board voted unanimously to apply for candidacy to the International Baccalaureate NYP program, so middle years program. So we are well on the way towards that. And then, of course, with the consolidated middle school, that's really why we did it. So when in 3 years, when the middle school is built, then we'll have both schools come together. One is a pathway for STEM, one is a pathway for arts and humanities, but both faculties trained. The most expensive part about middle years International Baccalaureate program is the training of the teachers, and so there's hundreds of thousands of dollars we have in there for the training of the teachers, which would have been nearly impossible without the grant. In terms of school facilities, I say we, and although I had nothing to do with it, moved 2 portables with 2 big classrooms. Actually, they're bolted together, so we were able to move them from Pleasant Valley up Route 12 and built a foundation at Charles Barnum School. So 2 classrooms have made a big difference. As I said, we actually sent 140 extra children to Charles Barnum School. So the 2 classrooms have been really effective. The mayor knows this, but I don't know if anyone else was at the Martin Luther King dinner the other night. It always is one of the great experiences of the year. This year they gave out 9 $20,000 scholarships, and the students get up in front of 600 or 700 people and deliver these speeches that are just truly remarkable. Just in their delivery, never mind what they say, but what they say is stories of kids from Haiti and the Philippines and wherever, just really so inspiring that it's really quite amazing. But although it's opening schools all throughout southeastern Connecticut, we actually had 3 this year, which was really remarkable. Kids who get essentially a $20,000 shot in the arm, and in many cases they get scholarships because of their academic merit, and this basically pays for room and board for at least a couple of years. It's a great program, and I know the community feels very proud to have those 3 recipients. And then the last thing is actually back to Mayor Flax. He and I welcomed the Deputy Lord Mayor of London. Our band, you may remember last year, went to the national championships at Giant Stadium in New Jersey, and came in 4th in the country. And so the parade in London, the New Year's Day parade for 2019, invites 3 bands from the United States, and we received the invitation with the Lord Mayor in full gown, draped in ermine, which was quite a remarkable event. And so now the kids are fundraising. It's obviously it's an expensive deal, but they have a year and a half. So we've invited 8th graders because they will be around at that time. But as the Lord Mayor said, it is the largest parade in the world. Macy's has about 4,000 people in the parade. This has 8,000 people in it. It's viewed not by TV, but by the residents, about 1 million people. So it's really an exciting opportunity, and the chorus has been invited to perform at Westminster Abbey, and the orchestra. So it's really a great deal. So that's my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just a couple. I'll start from the top. The closure of the Pleasant Valley building itself, the reduction in staff, and I guess I'd also throw in the cost of moving the portables, the Charles Barnum. Net, what was the impact on your expenses?
That's a good question. It cost, the one I know that we've already calculated, because we haven't turned over the school yet to the town, but the cost of moving the portables was about $65,000. We did it because we needed to do it. We don't have enough classrooms at the school. And the turning over the school is, we're sort of a bit in a holding pattern. I've been working with Joe Sastry. There is a possibility of a number of students coming from Puerto Rico, and I've let them know that with their teachers actually, that there may be a possibility of allowing people to use that facility for a few months, so that as an emergency school. But we'll turn it over as soon as it's practical.
Okay, I remember we had an estimate earlier in the season during budget time of what would be saved by the closure of the school.
Oh, what would be? Oh, was that your question?
Altogether, now that we've closed the school and reduced the staff, what effect has that had on your expenses?
It was 1.8 million.
Okay, that was the prediction that you.
We knew the teachers we were going to let go. So, okay. Actually, let me be clear. We knew the teaching positions we would eliminate. The board offered an early retirement incentive, and a number of senior teachers took that retirement. So actually, nobody lost their job. But we have 18 less teachers.
The other question I have is the grant, the $4 million grant over 5 years, and maybe this dovetails with the referendum that passed. But how does the grant that's going to be used to make Westside a STEM magnet and Cutler an arts humanities magnet, how does that fit together with the plan of the future, should it come to pass and be funded, the Groton 2020 plan, which envisions a single middle school? Yeah. What would happen then?
Excellent question. That was my first one when I saw it. And we told the Federal Education Department, because they want to create more choice, more magnet schools. We said that these two magnet schools would operate for only 3 years, and then they would likely come together, and they said they were in favor of that. So
in other words, the single middle school in the future, that would become some sort of a magnet school?
Well, no. It will only be it will only be an intra-district, in-town magnet school for 3 years. The one that come together, it won't be a magnet school any longer.
Okay, so these are intra-district, and then the new middle school, should it come to pass, is not a magnet school in any sense at all?
That's right.
Okay.
But the grant continues.
Okay, and one final one, if I might. I wasn't thinking about this before. When you said we've hired a principal, we had 98 some odd applicants.
Right.
If we haven't hired the best person possible, shame on us.
Right.
Just exactly how do you measure the performance of a school principal?
How do we measure it?
Yeah, how do you know if the principal's doing a good job? I never really thought about that before, but how do you
Oh, there's
determine
a whole, we have a whole evaluation document, and it comes partly from the state and then the district. It's an annual, it's really quite complicated, but it's a combination of student learning, the scores that are measured by the state examinations, as well as leadership measures, and they have to set goals, and I, in the case of the principals, measure their progress against the goals that are set.
All right, thank you.
Bonnie, anything great?
So you let 18 teachers either retire and nobody lost their job. So what are you going to the job fairs hiring teachers for? What positions are you filling?
It's not really teachers. It's paraprofessionals and bus aides and substitutes and that sort of. We never have enough of those people.
And I did hear some complaints from people in town about that new bus coordinator and how expensive it was.
The new bus coordinator allowed us to eliminate some buses. Well, we actually did a study. We did an analysis, and what we realized was a bus system that services 5,000 children when we brought in the bus consultant, he was quite surprised that a system would really rest on one person. You know, and of course, you're sort of one illness away from. In our town, we have because the military community, we have people coming and going all the time, which as you can imagine is a registration issue. But it's also a bus issue. So literally every single day we are going to our, it's now computerized, but we are going to say, okay, this child is no longer at this house, there's no longer a bus stop here, but we have to add 2 over here. So it's a kind of an ongoing, but we saved money actually, because with the software and the really competent use of the software, we were able to reduce the number of buses. That's how it was funded.
Greg, and then Rich?
Yeah, the magnet school assistance program you mentioned, aside from the money that you mentioned for busing, where's the rest of the money get spent?
It gets, one part of it is for an international baccalaureate coordinator. Somebody has to coordinate, well, it'd be one person, but coordinate for both middle schools. There is another full-time coordinator to organize the programs at Cutler, to create all the partnerships and organize the programs, and then a STEM coordinator for Westside, and then lots of professional development to train the teachers in the middle years program. And for example, at Westside, we are going to institute Project Lead the Way, which is an engineering program, and robotics. So there's thousands of dollars in there for equipment to set all that up.
Right.
And then when the grant goes away, of course, we still have the equipment.
Do we still have those folks? Are they part of our,
Oh, well, the coordinators will, once the programs are up and running, will be absorbed into the staff. There won't be a need for a full-time coordinator any longer.
all right, thanks.
Rich? And then
Doctor, how many special education people are you talking about that you need?
Oh, well, I know in Charles Barnum, there's for sure one that we need. You know, we've been you know we've been doing the best we can, and you know we have the budget that we have, and we're doing what we can do. I've been in contact with our representatives and senator, and you know been sort of following the whole budget thing, and there may be some relief in the future, and so but until that time we're just holding fast.
Thank you.
Harry?
Yeah, I don't know where this is, but I'm going to ask the question, see if maybe you can make a comment, Dr. Grenier. There was a proposal to synchronize school calendars in the state of Connecticut. And for good reason. I mean, you know, if you're a bus driver and you live in Ledyard and you drive a bus for Groton, or a teacher or a principal, or you don't have to be living in the same town that you teach in, but it causes chaos in families when the schedules don't interconnect. And I think there was legislation and it's gone away, or there was some. Could you just comment on that? Because
well, the reason I chuckled is because under mandate relief, they only took one mandate away, which was a coordinated regional calendar, and that was the one mandate that saved money.
okay.
Because we still have to send the kids to Ledyard. If Ledyard has April vacation, for example, we still have to have a bus to take the kids to Grasso Tech, and vice versa. They have the same for us. And we have to send the kids to Marine Science Magnet School and all that sort of stuff. So it was costing tens of thousands of dollars a year, because when you bring in the drivers, you have to pay them. So I was a big fan of we get together, figure out what your calendar is going to be, and then everybody will have the same calendar. And it affects what you just said, teachers working in one town and having kids in another town. But much to my surprise, under mandate relief, they took that away. Like I say, there are a lot of mandates that cost us a lot of money. That was the only one I was aware of that saved money. But the legislature chose to take that one away.
Okay. Thank
That
you.
will remain a
It
mystery.
was bad that I had in my mind something happened, okay. thank
Yeah,
you.
it was not a good thing to take away.
Diane?
I'm really happy to hear that there were no layoffs, because I know that was your big concern
Yeah.
during the budget talks.
Yes.
I also find it interesting that the Magnet School Assistant Program is going to allow you to keep the money for the last 2 years when
Right.
the middle school is not going to be a magnet school.
I assumed that we would not be eligible. So,
And they-
right off the bat, we said,
they
look,
assured
we're planning, here's our plan, and they said, if you are expanding magnet school choice, at least over a 2 or 3 year period, we were part of a consortium, by the way, that you may have read about in the paper, that was awarded 15 million. So 2 middle schools in Norwich are essentially doing the same thing. A regional culture magnet school in New London, which is run by Learn. And of the seven entities that applied for this, 6 of them are using it for International Baccalaureate.
So my question though is, do you know when will you know for sure you are going to get funding for the 2020 school from the state? Because I've had a lot of questions asked to me, are we going to scrap the idea
Yeah.
if you don't get the funding? So
Yeah.
do you have a set date or a timeline?
Well, it is going to be, my understanding is, very shortly after the budget is passed. And
I
if
like that positive attitude,
If the
Dr.
news,
Grenier.
if the news is correct, Representative Conley, but I've received several text messages to say, okay, we have a deal. So I don't.
Over the last 4 months, you've gotten
Yeah,
them many
exactly.
times, I know.
Exactly. So, yeah, my understanding is that, and, we are moving forward with the premise. But getting the 2 middle schools would be a big deal for us, because what has happened over the last couple of years is, as you know, number of children are going to New London public schools. And almost never did anyone stay to go to Betty Dover. And Betty Dover now has 4 separate middle schools, 4 pathways, but they're actually 4 separate schools. And so students who are leaving Winthrop are now going to Betty Dover because, that's where they're going to school. So we're starting to see an increase in the number of middle school students who are attending New London public schools. And my desire all along was not to say that they shouldn't go, but to make sure that Groton is viewed as a viable alternative, a competitor. And these 2 schools, I think, will. Well, I can tell you, our 2 elementary schools, we had 120 people, 160 people who were on the waiting list for Northeast Academy Performing Arts Magnet School, and 185 at Catherine Klonowski. So these are very desirable. Young parents like choice, and so the STEAM schools, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics at Catherine Klonowski, and the Performing Arts school at Northeast Academy, they are usually successful. And if at least my recommendation would be, at least one of the 2 middle schools that will get renovated will become a primary years International Baccalaureate school, so that we will have International Baccalaureate from K to 12. It would not only be the only one in the state, it'd be one of the few in the country, which would, I think, make Groton really a lighthouse district. Really wonderful.
I had a couple questions for you, Dr. Grenier. Sure. One is, and you had mentioned it earlier, but I want to confirm. The Valley School ended up closing, but it was slated to close, but we did it a year early, or 2 years early.
Well, truly 5 years early.
Say again?
5. Well, because it will take 3 years to build the middle school, and then once we close the middle school, empty out the 2 middle schools, it'll take another couple of years to renovate those schools.
Okay.
So it really wouldn't be until 2022, probably.
So it was planned to do, but you
Right.
upped the calendar 5 years because of the
That's
budget
right.
situation.
That's right.
And I know you said that you didn't eliminate any positions, that it was through,
No layoffs.
No layoffs, right. So I'm just looking for a general comment from you regarding the playout of the budget. It was a contentious budget process, and there were cuts made to the Board of Ed. So if you had to list like the top, like, what are the results of the cut? Is it that they were absorbed by Pleasant Valley, and that was, you know, if I was going to call up, because I've seen talked to a couple of teachers, and asked them, are you feeling the brunt? And they say no. Now that's great on our part, that on your part, that they're not feeling it, and I'm just wondering what, you know.
Well, it actually goes back to Councilor Antipas's comment. So we cut 1.8 million, but the total cut was 2.8. And so there was another $1 million. One of the things that we cut was we had a literacy specialist at both middle schools, and we only have one, so it's half-time, and, you know, frankly, that's one of the things. I'd really like to see another literacy specialist so that each school would be served. I'd like to see another math specialist, so those are 2. I'd like to see another special ed teacher. And one of the things, and I reported to the board last night, but we have to see, I need a little bit longer to see what the trends are. But we anticipated one of the volatile and really unpredictable parts about a school budget are the number of special education services that have to be provided. Because if a child comes in, and they do, in a highly mobile district, we have the need for paraprofessionals. And frankly, last year, when we looked at the budget, we said we'll cut paraprofessional positions by 10, if you remember, and that has not worked out. And the reason it doesn't work out is because we received several students who, in their prior district, right in their individual education plan, it says that the child will have a one-on-one para. So we need to respond to that. So we have, and that account is in deficit right now. But I don't want to panic. But I have frozen the budget, and we have a hiring freeze for everyone except for replacement. So if we needed a music teacher, for example, music teacher resign, well, obviously we're going to hire a music teacher, but we're not hiring any expansions. We're not even hiring paraprofessionals, and that's getting to be a bit of a contentious point.
Because during that whole process, you had given us a sheet of what would happen. Right. And I'm just trying to recall if some of the things that you're mentioning were even on there.
Well, yeah. So we cut C.O.W, which Connecticut Association of Boards of Ed, and
like the feeling. I'm just trying to get the feeling from the like. Again, I have a kid I have 2 at the high school. Right. We're not seeing it. So. Right. You guys are doing a great job of hiding or whatever, but and some of the things that you're speaking about weren't on the list that you gave us.
No, they were. The things I taught, we did cut a special ed teacher, and we did cut the literacy, and we did cut the math specialist. We did cut C.O.W. We cut half of our software. So we have some of the math software, we have some of the literacy software. I really need a little. Next time I come, maybe I'll talk a little bit more about the budget. We nearly have enough computers for every child. Every child in the district has to take a test online, and Google has this Chromebook thing that's $250. So all the high school children have Chromebooks. All the schools have carts. But you can imagine the infrastructure that goes beyond that. We have, I always like to observe to people in the industry, we have about 5,000 computers, we have about 5,000 professionals, 500 professionals who use that, and we have 5 technicians. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty easy to do the math. One technician for every 1,000 computers.
I think from that IT perspective, we want to talk about IT.
Right.
I think
It's a challenge, but like you say, we're hanging in there and doing the best we can, and that's that's
the only other question. I just have one other question. I'll make it quick. The $4 million grant are you already it's the bachelor laureate program helps exceptional students, right? Or makes okay students become
Yeah.
it's to build up people who are very smarter. But let's say that's not right. But it's not helping the lower end student.
Let me make a distinction,
Okay.
please. Thank you for asking that question. There are 2 baccalaureate programs now in our school. One is the diploma program that is really for some serious students who are only 11th and 12th graders. They're serious, not necessarily particularly gifted, although a lot of them are, but serious. And we've expanded that program from 6 candidates to about 35 for the diploma, and from about I think when I got here, like 120 kids that were taking some international baccalaureate course to 372 this year. So we've expanded it, but that's just 11th and 12th graders. The middle years program is also under the big umbrella of International Baccalaureate, but that's for everybody. That is for every student in grades 6 through 10, not just the middle school. And it is an interdisciplinary, deep into reading and writing, no short answer testing, for example. Every student takes world language. Every student has the goal of becoming proficient in a
So
world
we're not,
language.
we're not
Catering
meeting our
We're not
students who aren't as
excluding
smart
our-
behind. Like, I want to make sure that they're getting.
Actually, no.
Okay,
The
that's all I need.
The big thing that the board heard was, this is going to be an instructional program that's going to level the playing field for all of our students and give them an opportunity when they become 11th graders to go to AP, to go to IB, to go to a career pathways. We have a Project Lead the Way program that's phenomenal for engineering. So yeah, we're very
Okay, that's what I'm
sensitive to
sure.
that.
And I think from a paraprofessional standpoint, if you're finding yourself short of paras,
Yes.
and there was a need for, I think you should help. I think that we, speaking only for myself, it's
I'll be back.
how important they are in the classroom.
No, I appreciate you saying that.
so-
Yeah, I do appreciate that.
Okay, great.
Since you said that we closed Pleasant Valley 5 years early, I think?
Yes.
So does that mean we're going to realize a $9 million savings over, is that what that means, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's a perpetual savings,
Right.
right? But of course, next year's budget, we'll sort of forget about Pleasant Valley and they'll say, well, not you, but we'll Well, actually, there used to be 14 schools in Groton. Now there are 9. Soon there will be 8. So we've gone from 14 to 8. And obviously, less heating, less principals, less secretaries, less custodians, less everything. And with slightly bigger elementary schools, you don't get the S.B. Butler phenomenon where when 40 kids show up, we say, oh great, two classes of 20. But 50 kids show up, you go, I don't know if I want 2 classes of 25, so maybe we have 3 of 14 and 15, and I'm like, that's a little too small. So the slightly larger 600 children in schools will give us an opportunity to spread out the ups and downs a little better.
Yes. Well, Dr. Greener, thanks for coming.
I enjoyed being here. I'll see you next month.
Thanks.
2017-0242, filling the patrol officer position in the police department. We have Gately.
You have a guest. I know you're used to seeing the chief. I'm Paul Gately, Deputy Chief.
Welcome.
I'm here tonight to discuss our request to fill a vacant patrol officer position in the police department in light of the hiring freeze. Currently, we have an opportunity to fill that position with a certified police officer who's looking to laterally transfer from another department. That's a significant cost savings to the department. As you probably know, oftentimes when we're filling these positions, we're doing so with a fresh recruit, someone that we would send to the academy, and we would be without that person for the entire time that they're there. So although they're filling a vacancy, the position that the PD is filled, the actual vacancy isn't filled on the road until they actually get out of the academy. Right now, we have the opportunity to hire a police officer from another department. He's looking to transfer. He wants to laterally transfer to this area. We've interviewed him. He looks like he'd be a great fit. Well-educated. He's been out on patrol for 2.5 years. He's been assigned to that department, so he's already had some seasoning and some experience, and I think it'd be a great fit And we're asking that we get permission to go ahead and make that fill.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Frank.
Is this in your budget at this time?
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay, thank you.
Greg?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. One of the reasons that he noted was there was a lack of benefits / retirement program at their PD.
Yes.
Does that mean zero?
They have a, they don't have a pension system. They have a 401K, and it's not the most desirable. If you have the opportunity to get a pension system, a lot of folks would prefer that over a 401K, and oftentimes they have to work for quite a bit long period to realize the benefit of that.
Okay.
And that's
Thanks.
something that he quoted to us
Yes,
as an
sir.
issue.
And then
You know, we have a program if somebody does that from our, but does he have to reimburse his old department what they paid for training? Because I think we have some kind of agreement for that too, if somebody leaves.
That agreement is a new agreement, and that predates his employment at his current PD, so he doesn't have to backfill.
So that's pretty good. Rich, you need a motion?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, during this period, how many officers have left the department?
During which period?
Since
he's been
the last
there?
6 months.
I don't have the exact number, but it's a problem for that department, is how he explained it to us.
So really, this is replacing somebody who already left, and you're maintaining your limit of officers, patrolmen.
Yeah, we have an existing vacancy. This would be filling that vacancy at a significant cost savings to the department.
And he's all certified and everything?
He's certified, he's ready to go.
That's a big savings.
A significant savings, yes.
Sure.
Not only in money, but in time. Time spent training, time spent without him while he's at training. It'll be a minimal training period for him. He'd just have to come here, get accustomed to our way of doing things, our codes, and the lay of the land here in this area, because he's not from the area.
Harry?
Yeah, I'll move that we authorize the hiring of this.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Dean?
The department's budget provides for 41 patrol officers. So how many patrol officers do you have right now without this?
40.
40. So this would be the 41st. So
Yes.
You're full. Because I can't presume that everybody's all staffed to the max of their budget.
We have an officer that's in training right now in the academy. She's relatively new to the academy. She's probably been there about a month. But
So,
we count her as
if we approve this, that makes 41, and then she would do the one behind, the one that's in the academy now, would they take the place of somebody else who would leave, or would we have?
No,
42?
she's 40.
She's past
This
the
this
part.
hire would be 41.
Okay,
But she's not
thank you. I
working.
just didn't know. All
All
right,
right.
thank
We have a
you.
motion and a second. Any other discussion? Greg?
Yeah, do we have any other positions that might come up in the near future till we really understand what the state budget is?
I haven't heard of anything.
Yeah.
And it's hard to pass up a chance to get someone already trained and save over 35,000.
Right.
Seeing no other questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8 to 0 to 0.
Thank you for your support, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next is 2017-0005, pending litigation. And this is regarding the Oddfellows Agreement. And I hereby move that the members of the Town Council Committee of the Whole, Town Manager John Burt, Tax Assessor Mary Gardner, Finance Director Cindy Landry, and Town Attorney Eric Callahan go into executive session pursuant to General Statute Section 1-200, parentheses 6, parentheses B, for the purpose of discussing strategy and negotiations related to pending litigation and/or pending claims concerning the tax appeal filed by Oddfellows Home of Connecticut Incorporated, doing business as Fairview. I so move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're going into executive session. Because we have a cow before the next. Okay, we're back from executive session. And we'll take it up. We'll do a resolution for the, what was discussed in the executive session with a resolution in 2 weeks, right?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, so you're saying, you're making a motion or you're not making a
I'm
motion?
not making a
missed
motion.
it. Okay, you're just announcing,
We'll prepare a resolution to go straight to the council meeting on November 8th.
without a resolution here?
Without a motion here, I guess.
You could do that.
2017-0172, adoption of ordinance to designate the Planning Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and to abolish the Zoning Commission. And this is back on the docket because we were going to vote on it at a regular council meeting, and there was some issue with dates and completion dates and completing before the completion date. And it's been newly worded. Right, is that right? Am I saying that right? The ordinance has been reworded to take into consideration the dates, is that correct?
Right, if you look at number 6 on that resolution, that's really the key part that gives that flexibility in the language as requested.
Gotcha. Yes, Harry?
What is this about, are we looking to possibly pass a resolution that would change membership from 7 to 5 too?
That's something that had been discussed earlier, and John Reiner asked me to throw that back out there, that right now the default is these 7 members. He had asked about having 5. That had been discussed some, but I don't know if a real conclusion had ever been arrived at, so I just want to make sure it didn't get passed up without being made aware.
I for one am a 7.
I'm a 7 guy.
I mean, because if you have 5, 2 people can carry the load with a quorum of 3. You know what I'm saying? That just doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm a 7 girl.
I'm a 5.
7.
Dean?
Do you know John's reasoning for the 5?
What's that?
Do you know John's reasoning for the 5?
I do. You go ahead.
It'd be harder to find easier to find qualified members who will want to participate, I would guess. Do you have anything further than that? Yeah.
Bonnie?
I gotta admit though, I lean 7 myself.
He said that it works well with that size, and he and Deb Jones supported 5.
I agree with the 7 because of what Harry said.
All right, so it's written in as 7, so if we don't want to change it to 5, if there's not a desire to, we can leave it as is, and if you're against the 7, you would vote against the ordinance as written. If nobody has any other questions, somebody wants to move it to a vote.
I don't think we're gonna move. Isn't this just saying that you're okay with the previously adopted?
No, there was a change because when it came before the council wanted to see some flexibility in the language rather than having it be adamantly, at the time it was January 1st. It's been moved back to the 4th because of holidays and stuff. But they wanted some flexibility that what if we get done with some of these ordinance updates before then? So number 6 includes, and so it was referred back to here. It was, so it has to be reapproved here to go back to the full council.
Harry?
I'm going to move it as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to move the ordinance as presented in our packet. Is there any discussion on this? So basically, just so everyone understands, the zoning commission shall be abolished and cease to exist, and the planning commission shall become the planning and zoning commission on the earlier of January 4th, 2019, so that's the latest date, January 4th, 2019, or 45 days after the day on which written certification is given by the Director of the Office of Planning and Development Services to the council and clerk that the comprehensive rewrite of the zoning regulations pending before the zoning commission on the date of passage of this ordinance by the town council has been adopted by the zoning commission. So it's basically saying that we support the new regs to be written and accepted before they change, before the change becomes permanent. Bonnie?
I have a question. So if we change it back to the 7 members, we still can reduce that in the future if we want. Is that?
Yes, 7.
Yeah.
No, I know, but we could reduce it to 5 in the future if there was a vote for that.
You'd have to amend the ordinance, but yes.
And then,
Okay.
yeah. All right. No other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh,
I'm sorry, it's immaterial.
okay. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0 to 0. 2017-0216, the bike feasibility study presentation. Thanks, Ben. Hi, Mark.
While they're setting up, I'll begin. The town of Groton hired VHB to conduct a study of design improvements to connect Depot Road to Thomas Road. The study was to examine bike and pedestrian-friendly facilities, collect public feedback, identify rights-of-way, and opportunities for creating bike lanes, shared youth paths, and signage improvements. The study also included cost estimates of identified improvements and potential funding sources. This study was part of a CIP that was approved in FYE 15. When completed, this project will create a bike pedestrian-friendly facility from the Lily Lane Trail to the proposed bike path along Thomas Road, creating an east-west route that would connect Groton with Groton City. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the two consultants from VHB.
Have some handouts that might be easier to follow along. Thanks, Mark. My name is Bill DeSantis. I'm Senior Project Manager and a registered professional engineer with VHB. I work mainly out of our Providence office, covering projects in Rhode Island and Connecticut, but I'm also our corporate director of bicycle and pedestrian projects, which means I work on bike projects throughout our offices on the Eastern Seaboard, and I have over 30 years experience in doing these kinds of projects. With me is Jack Madden. Jack's also a registered professional engineer and has 15 years of design experience with a heavy emphasis on bicycle and pedestrian projects. As Mark mentioned, the study was to look at bicycle and pedestrian improvements, to look at practical and feasible alternatives for connecting the trolley line trail on Lily Lane and Bluff Point State Park on the eastern side of the Quantic River, and how do we get from there up and around the river, around the airport, over to the proposed project on Thomas Road. We used a GIS database that's available from the town to develop our base map and look at some of the critical factors that need to be considered when you're doing a feasibility study. Some of those factors include man-made features like roadways, state highways, the airport, possible sites where there may be contamination issues. We also looked at natural resources, wetlands, floodplains, areas of critical wildlife habitat, pretty much all of the factors that show up on the Connecticut DOT funding application. So the idea was that you would have the base information for the practical and feasible alternatives, which you could use to fill out a funding application for state or federal transportation funds, should you decide to move forward. So you wouldn't have to go back and redo the study. In addition to that, we also did a survey of town residents to find out what kind of facility they would like and which type of facility they would prefer to ride on, and how much support in terms of financial support they would be willing to undertake to fund such construction of such a facility. We also met with representatives, along with Mark, with the DPW, the engineering department, and the planning department to get their input and intake on what some of the issues that they saw, and we also conducted a field review of the project corridor. From that information, we've developed alternatives, again, to connect your facilities on one side of the river to the other. Basically, they're divided into two types: an on-road facility, basically bike lanes, striped marked lanes on existing roadways. That would have minimal impact. There would be some widening needed in some areas, but generally impact was a bit minimal. To a shared use path pretty much the whole way, which obviously would have more impact. And we combined those into a matrix with these critical, in what we call impact criteria, such as wetlands, how many right-of-way actions, what kind of impact to utilities would happen for each alternative, and of course, cost. So I'm going to turn this over to Jack now. He's just going to go through a brief review of the type of facilities and the alternatives we looked at.
Great. Thanks, Bill.
By the way, these boards are in your packet, so you can follow along.
So our base mapping product is what you see here. And when we look at these different alternatives that I'll show you, we broke it down, each alternative down into segments. Each segment shares certain characteristics such as existing pavement width or parking, no parking, and that helps us compare the alternatives. It also, each segment for each alternative is the same, more or less the same segment, so for comparison's sake, that helps us to talk about the different alternatives. So you can follow along in your packet, and you'll see the segments shown numbered 1 through 10, and following from Industrial Drive west towards Thomas Road, you'll be able to follow along. So the first alternative that we looked at was a completely on-road bike facility using pavement markings and signage primarily to designate space for the cyclists in the road. So from the end of the GNS trolley line at Knoxville Lane, we connect with a short segment onto Industrial Drive. And on Industrial Drive, we have bicycle lanes using the existing pavement width and just allocating the space more efficiently with pavement markings. When we get to Depot Road on Alternative 1, we remove a lane of parking and have a bike lane with parking on one side all the way up to Route 1. At Route 1, we stay on shoulder bike lanes, and when we cross the bridge, the Pequannock Bridge, we have a 6-foot bike lane with a 2-foot buffer to maintain separation from vehicle traffic. When we get to the intersection with South Road, at that signal, we bring cyclists down South Road. This is where the right-of-way issues become tricky. We get the pavement width narrows, and it requires a little bit of widening on South Road to maintain our shoulder bike lane, and you can see that down in segment 7. Segment 8 is where South Road becomes Tower Avenue, and we have a little bit more room to provide bike lanes and maintain an 11-foot travel lane, and so on out to Thomas Road. When we get to the railroad crossing and the bridge over the creek, the bike lane turns into shared lane markings, which is where the cyclist shares the lane with vehicles. So that's the on-road, primarily on-road alternative.
Any questions on that? Sure.
I mean, eventually you're going to turn left on Thomas Road. Is that,
Yes.
is that correct? And
Yes.
is that built into that multi-use thing where we're
Yes.
talking, that's been in the works for over 15 years?
Yes, and we checked with the staff in our Weathersfield office, and it's our understanding that the Connecticut DOT has reviewed the plans. They're at 60% or 65% design. They reviewed the plans, and there is an issue with the floodplain, and they're waiting for some calculations to verify the impacts of the floodplain.
And it would include something across First Plain?
Right,
Okay.
right. So they would be tied into each other.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alternative 1A is primarily the same 1 through 10 as Alternative 1, with the exception of the segment between Depot Road and the South Road Route 1 intersection. On Alternative 1A, we're proposing that we try to convert the Pequannock River Walkway into a shared use boardwalk as a possible alternative. That would require adding width to the walkway, and then you would have when it comes to the Pequannock Bridge, it would go onto the roadway with both directions of bike traffic on the south side of the bridge, protected with a concrete barrier. And then that would continue on to South Road, where it would pick up the rest of the segments as we proposed in Alternative 1. The advantage of this alternative is that it eliminates crossings at Depot Road and Route 1, as well as crossings at South Road and Route 1.
So the only difference between 1 and 1A on your big sheets here is the sections at 3 and 4. The other ones are the same. So 3 is, we're going to convert that's a 6-foot wide boardwalk to one that's 10-foot wide, and then not widen the bridge, but reallocate the width on the existing bridge to have a shared use path on the south side. Any questions on 1A? Okay.
Now, as Bill mentioned, we wanted to investigate an alternative that used shared use path, side path, or a shared use path along the alignment of our route. That's Alternative 2. Now, in order to do this, from Knoxville Road, we have the same segment onto Industrial Drive. Once we get to Industrial Drive, we propose a side path on the north side of Industrial Drive. That would be bi-directional. And when we get to Depot Road, we would bring it up the west side of Depot Road and maintain parking on both sides of Depot Road with 11-foot travel lanes and a 10-foot side path. At Route 1, we would keep the bi-directional shared use path along the south side of Route 1 with a concrete barrier. At South Road, we would continue that side path on the west side of South Road, and that would continue up until the underpass at the Northeast Rail Corridor, where it would have to be, we would have to bring cyclists back into the road to share the lane with car traffic. Then on the other side of that, we would reintroduce the shared use path as we continue down South Road. At Tower Avenue, again, we have more room on Tower Avenue, but we maintain the side path on the west side. Over the bridge at the railroad crossing and the creek crossing there, and some widening of Tower Avenue as we approach Thomas Road.
So basically, Alternative 2 is take your trolley line path and put it on one side of the roadway. So it'd be parallel and adjacent to the roadway, separated from the roadway by a grass strip and a buffer area.
Now, in all these cases, we're trying to contain our bike facility within the existing right-of-way, but obviously, there would be a lot of property acquisition with this alternative, and there would be some encroachment onto existing residential areas. These three alternatives that I've just shown you are what we presented in our public meeting on July 31st. We received some feedback from the public who attended that meeting, who were, among other things, they were concerned about the encroachment into front yards along particularly South Road. And so we went back to the drawing table and we came up with a combination of the segments that we've presented here to address those concerns, and we came up with alternative 3, which uses a combination of on-road facilities with side paths where the opportunity for the extra alignment along the side of the road would be a little bit easier to manage. The side path that, the adjacent side path would be maintained on section 2 on Industrial Drive. We would use the Pequannock Walkway alternative and eliminate the crossings as we did in 1A with up to South Road as we cross the Pequannock Bridge. Otherwise, on South Road, we would stay on the road with pavement markings and signage. Under the Amtrak underpass, we would be in the roadway with the vehicle traffic. And as we continue on South Road, we would maintain more or less an on-road facility. And then as we get to Tower Avenue, where in the area of the airport, we would go back out onto a shared use path adjacent to the roadway, and then onto Tower Avenue. Once we approaching Tower Avenue with shared lane markings into the new facility on Thomas Road.
So basically alternative 3 is shared use path immediately adjacent to your trolley line trail, on road, along the boardwalk, converting that to walkway to a boardwalk up to Route 1, an off-road path along Route 1 over the river, and then on-road down to the railroad overpass, and then on-road a little bit, and then off-road until you get over to Thomas Road. So it's kind of a combination of both alternatives. The matrix shows these 4 different alternatives, and again, the factors that are on the DOT funding applications. We rank them in comparison to one another. The most expensive, the least expensive, the most right-of-way acquisitions, the least amount of right-of-way acquisitions, and then in between, and came up with a number score. That doesn't mean it's, the best. The one with the best score doesn't necessarily mean it's the best alternative. Obviously, the one that's most expensive is going to give you a facility that majority of people want to use, but it does come with cost. So it's kind of, again, just a database for you to make an informed decision on how you might want to proceed. Any questions?
Did one of them actually cut through the Tilcon property? Or did it get off South Road and go through the gravel pits or whatever?
No.
No, okay. Okay, so it was all on the road. And what side of the underpass would you be going if you were going to Tower Avenue, let's say on South Road? Because the right side of that's wet all the time.
Right. There are definitely some issues with drainage in that underpass.
Yeah, there's a pump under the ground there.
I imagine there is.
The state maintains a pump there to
Right.
pump that out when you have bad storms. Yeah. So.
So all of our alternatives run into that same issue. So
Yep.
that segment 6, you'll see that each one of our alternatives shows the same treatment, which is introducing cyclists back into the roadway to share the lane with cars.
Because there's a walkway sort of on the left side as you're going there.
Right.
And the right side is wet all the time. I mean, it was wet.
Our
tonight.
cost estimate has an allowance for some pavement improvements and some minimal drainage improvements. We don't really know the scope of the
That's
issue
below,
there, so.
below sea level is a problem.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, in that case, we would want to,
Should bike in the rain anyways.
Well, we did check with CONDOT, and I believe there was nothing on their program to do any replacement or any work on that structure, so there would have to be some drainage improvements there.
Great, and then Bonnie?
So the object of this bike trail is purely recreational? Is that true, or does it connect like some of these future multi-use developments that we're gonna try to bring to the town?
Well, both. Because it connects Bluff Point and the off-road, proposed off-road path that's coming on the west side of the river. It certainly would be recreational, but it does provide you a continuous corridor from which you can build off of as you, to develop other projects in the town. Right now, it's a little bit disjointed, and certainly coming up, Depot Street and South Road are, fairly low traffic volumes, but then you get onto Route 1, and that obviously is a whole other issue there. So.
Yeah, I guess it'd be interesting to understand what Paige's thoughts were as far as, mixed-use developments is a big deal for, bringing in young folks and bike paths, and I'd just be interested in what he thinks, what their department's planning and how this interacts with that, and is there any grant money involved to get these things?
That's my question.
Yes, so DOT has a transportation alternatives funding program where they focus on non-motorized transportation projects, complete streets, you may have heard that term, type projects that promote alternative types of travel other than a motor vehicle. So again, we set up your analysis and looked at the factors that are on that application that, so you could apply for state and or federal funding should you decide to move forward. I would think that might be, this project might score fairly high because they already have funding a project on one side and you have an existing trail on the other and a state park that gets a lot of use during the summer season. So it would think this kind of fill the gap, put in the missing link kind of project generally gets a fairly high score.
I bike. It's not a lifestyle. I probably should bike more, but I do love bikes. I take them apart even. My question is this. This is mostly on-road. Everybody loves off-road trails. And I'm thinking, if it's me and it's on-road, I could tolerate that. Even when there's no path, I'm going to be on the road and cross my fingers. But I'd be loath to take small children with me if it's an on-road path. So what's your experience with laying out an on-road bike path? Is it actually used? I mean, if we spend anywhere between, don't quote me, the $500,000 and the $4 million, is it actually going to be used, even if it's just for recreation? Or is it going to be a lovely thing that, a couple of grown-ups are going to use because they're the only ones who dare use it? Because all this between you and the traffic is a strip of paint.
Correct. So that was part of the survey, and we asked, would you, the type of questions were, would you ride this? Would you ride this with your family, with young children? And of course, the majority of folks said, yeah, we prefer to, riding with our family and children, an off-road shared use path kind of facility as opposed to a shared lane or a marked bike lane. So that's why the study included both options. Roadways that are fairly low speed and low traffic like Depot generally are more suitable to on-road facilities simply because there's not a lot of traffic, and when traffic there is, it's fairly low speed. If you get to roadways that have more traffic and or higher speeds, obviously there's less inclination for folks to take young children or families out on those types of roads.
Yeah,
so we gave you both options.
I'm thinking the road that goes around the airport, one, it's got curves.
Yes.
Two, it has a built-in distraction, little planes taking off and landing, and it's hard for drivers not to look over this way as they're coming down the road.
Sure.
And not see the bike.
Right. So that's why that option included some widening to make the road a little wider for a marked lane, and also included a section that was off-road. That was kind of why we went to alternative 3, and that was sort of the message we got from the public meetings is, where you have roads with higher volumes and higher speeds, we really prefer to be off-road. So it's kind of a combination of both.
And this is a 2015 CIP, you said?
Yes.
When was it initiated? When did the work begin? When did we hire the consultants?
We started about a
Year,
little over a year ago.
yeah. I think it was about a year ago.
Okay. As a side note, John, is it possible to look at any CIPs that have been approved that have not yet been initiated to see until we have a budget passed to see just to review them?
I'm not sure. I'll look, certainly. I'm not sure there's many out there that haven't been initiated, but we'll definitely take a look.
Okay.
We've had some of those discussions.
And what did the cost mark? What was the budget amount budgeted?
It was 25,000.
I'm sorry?
25,000.
Okay. And in the CIP, did it have like an alternate, like a year out of how much would be budgeted for the project itself? Or was that?
No, those figures weren't available until they had.
So we didn't put any
conducted
estimate or
their-
anything in, it was just, we didn't put an estimate or anything into the,
No, there is currently in the proposed CIPs that you will be reviewing.
Yeah.
The town manager will be reviewing. At some point, I think we've already got projects that are lined up. So
Yeah.
this one, I think there's a portion of this money is proposed for, I think it's 2023.
okay.
So it's a ways out there.
And, what's my train of thought? You said there's scores, right, of the plans, each proposal has a score.
Yes.
But do you have a value to the town? Like, this project brings a value, you know what I mean? Like,
A number, like a monetary?
like, or something that you can use to justify, spending that money for the bike path. Does it say how many miles it is?
It's 2.5 miles.
Okay, but it's connecting.
Yes.
So like if you connected to 2.5, how many miles on my bike could I ride continuously that the
Right.
2.5 connects? You know what I mean? Like, and what value does that bring? Is it the kind of trail that people are like, wow, they have a great bike trail. I'm going to come to Groton next week and I'm going to do the bike trail that brings me to blah blah blah. Like, I know we've talked about Bluff Point to Preston that we've talked about before,
Right.
which is really pretty long, I think. But you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the value? Like, what is it? How do you equate it? You can spend this much money and it brings this much value. Like, do you have some kind of?
Well, some of the factors that were in there were, like number 2, it's pedestrian and bicyclist connections / public support. There was connections to public facilities. How does that impact? Does it improve it? Does it decrease your public connections? Visual impacts, impacts to historic resources. So it wasn't just how many square feet of wetland or what the construction cost. There was some kind of qualitative, input into the evaluation.
Yeah.
But generally, what we're finding, and there's, just Google, economic impacts to bikeways, and you'll find that they generally, people want to ride. It's just that they're not they're not comfortable riding in traffic like a more experienced cyclist is, so they want some kind of
Yeah.
facility.
And you said, I'm sorry, you said you had like 30 years of experience in
Yes.
this, right? So if you're Groton, do you think that this is a proposal that you know, would you go for one at $500,000? Would you go 3.5, or would you look at the cost and the benefit because of what Dean was saying with the riding on the road and say, what's your professional opinion on that?
Well, my professional opinion is that very rarely do you come up with an alternative that's one way or the other. It's usually like alternative 3, that's a combination of different alternatives where, okay, yes, we'd like to have a shared use path the whole way, but that's a lot of money, it's a lot of utility work, it's a lot of right-of-way impacts, may not be acceptable to everybody in the community. But if you can find a way to provide a comfortable on-road bikeway where you're on roads at a low speed, low traffic, and then go to the off-road type of facility where you have higher speeds and more traffic, that generally is what we end up doing. And I know I have one project that I've been working on in Rhode Island since 1993. And we just started another construction of another segment. And I live near there, and I constantly go out there and I talk to people. I don't let them know we were working on it. And everybody tells me, oh, they love it, it's just how we should spend our tax dollars, that kind of thing. So it really is a benefit to the quality of life improvement to the community.
Young people
and
are
you've
looking
got
for it.
some great connections there. So.
Rich and then Bonnie?
Yeah, I like alternative number 1, if we could get a grant, so we could start off small and see how that works out before we start putting a lot of money into repairing roads and changing the location of utility poles and what have you. And as far as on South Street, as long as we don't affect anybody's front yard, I'm for that. Because I know a lot of people on that road don't want their front yards disturbed.
Sure.
But I really think that we should take small steps. And I noticed that you don't have any roads going into Bluff Point. Bluff Point. And that, to me, I don't ride a bike anymore, but if I was gonna ride a bike, that's where I would go.
Well, we did look at the connection from Industrial Drive to Bluff Point. We have similar issues with the underpass there, sight lines and width. So we could do some sort of shared lane marking into Bluff Point, but a specialized facility into Bluff Point wasn't really considered as part of this because it doesn't help us connect to Thomas Road from Industrial Drive.
Yeah, and we did take a field review of the old trolley, I guess it was a trolley line crossing there of the river, which would be great, except that you land literally at the end of the runway, pretty much. And with the security concerns at airports nowadays, you're just never going to get that. So.
Bonnie, do you have a question?
No, I have, yes.
Go ahead.
So, go to Harry, I forgot, now I've forgotten my train of thought.
The other thing about bike trails is people won't hop on it and run from one end to the other all the time. The thought of somebody coming off of one road and hopping on it and doing part of it is, it's people don't go on bike trails and do the whole thing, and I mean, people are going to use parts of it. That causeway that goes over to the airport, the town beach used to be on the other side of that 50 years ago, or 70 years ago. So I remember seeing old pictures of it. I don't know, I mean, I think, I'm a big supporter. I just talked to a friend of mine who's going to Amsterdam beginning of December, and he said that his daughter's over there, she's in college. He says that's what people do over there. They all bike. Everybody has a bike. Everybody bikes everywhere. And my last comment is Lily Lane is the beginning of this or part of it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something that the town has fixed up, and I biked it before. That used to be just a path in the woods, and that's really nice. And so, and I know people used to bike from Mystic, come down Lily Lane, and get on these very roads you're talking about that worked at Pfizer. They bike every day. Has there been any talk with people once you get over Birch Plain Creek on our new trail to where people might pick up in the city and go on a bike path in the city that doesn't exist? Or is it just saying, well, you're here, here's the city, and that's, I mean, has there been any talk with anybody on the city side of things for extending it around the back of the golf course or whatever?
Over to the beach.
Yeah, or over to the beach.
Not
There's
as
a lot
part
of
of
coastal
this
access
project.
over there too, I mean.
No, not as part of this project.
Thanks.
I remember what I was gonna say. When we were out door knocking, Dean and I ran into Sydney, what's her name?
Van Zandt.
Van Zandt. And she said that Bluff Point was getting 440,000
She said
visitors.
between Bluff Point, that was the claim, and between Bluff Point and
Does-
Haley Farm, they received 400,000 annual visitors. I said, how do you know that? She says, because we have somebody out there counting.
Or some,
Okay.
but it's high, so there are a lot of bike riders in town, so I think people would ride their bike to EB or to Pfizer. There's parking is such a problem over at EB. If we had a good bike lane, I bet people would do it in the nice weather.
Yeah, they come.
Well, now they'd have a
Didn't
reason to
drive.
come to Groton, right, if there was a nice bike path.
So this falls into the category of, if money was no object, and it certainly is these days. And I wanted, just a point of information, I pulled out of the budget book, this CIP for this, and this started back in '04, and right, fiscal year ending 15, that budget contained $25,000 for the consultant. And then we skip over fiscal year 2018, that's why we didn't see it this year. There's nothing in 17 or 16 or 17 either. And then starting in fiscal year 19, we've got 15,000 for appraisal and acquisition of funds. This has to do with the trolley trail at Knoxville to Industrial Drive. There's another 30,000 for more. Basically, this is all the lead up to. So we've got fiscal year ending 19, this is what's going to be proposed, a total of $115,000, and then 2020 would be 140, 2021 would be another 140, 2022 would be 48, and then this falls in the category of 2023, the TBD, to be determined, right? And do I have that?
Yes, that's
Mapped out?
correct.
So it's not just this, there's a whole lead up to it, that without this piece alone, is projected to come to, not including the money that's already been spent, $443,000, all shown coming out of capital reserve. So just to give it a little perspective. Again, money's no object, but wow, we've had the 1-2 punch this year, and we may continue to get it.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, thanks.
Thank you.
So where do we go from here? Like what's,
We'll have to have more discussions on the options. We'll eventually have a staff recommendation too, I would think. So, there'll be more discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice job, by the way.
Can I get an updated PDF of that handout? Assuming it's different than the one I got, or is it the same? Go ahead. Just in case, just so. Okay, thank you.
He said that it made me laugh when
Oh, okay.
it would connect the city with the town.
Could have told who was there.
So next is 2017-0075, disposition of William Seeley School property. And hi, Lisa. Are we going to go into executive session first, John, or?
Up to you. We can just see, we
Yeah.
can give a little bit of an
Okay.
overview.
Harry, do you want to?
Oh, I will read this. I'd like to make a motion. I hereby move that the members of the Town Council Committee of the Whole, Town Manager John Burt, and Manager of Economic and Community Development Paige Frank go into executive session pursuant to General Statute Section 1-206D for the purposes of discussing the lease, sale, or purchase of real estate concerning William Seeley School property. Is that all we're including? Just
Yes.
Paige and John? Is that right?
Second.
Okay, I so
Second.
move.
The motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, that passes 7-0. We go into executive session. property. I think, Lisa, if you want to come on up. How you doing? Good. Paige, do you want to start?
I'll read the resolution.
Or we just, do you want to just go right to the resolution?
I'll read the whole resolution.
This
How's
is the
that?
one that,
I got a corrected copy.
very good.
Resolution authorizing contracts concerning William Seeley School property. Whereas the town of Groton has been pursuing the redevelopment of William Seeley School property on Walker Hill Road, and whereas the town council has determined the best option to develop the property would be to work with a commercial real estate broker and to market the property in conjunction with several adjacent properties. And whereas the town manager has a draft contract with Pinpoint Commercial Real Estate to market the property for a flat fee of $70,000 or a commission of 10% of the actual sales price, whichever is greater, in addition to other incentives only payable upon closing on the sale of the property. And whereas the town council has also determined that the efforts to market this property will require the creation of multiple conceptual plans, and whereas the town manager has a draft agreement with Nelson Edwards Company Architects LLC to create the necessary conceptual plans at a cost of $12,750. Now therefore be it resolved that the town council authorizes the town manager to enter into agreements with both Pinpoint Commercial Real Estate and Nelson Edwards Company Architects, and be it further resolved that the funds to pay for the Nelson Edwards contract shall come from anticipated salary savings, $11,700 within the Planning and Development Department, and $1,050 from CIP 50106-5868 Market Excess Town Properties. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Bonnie?
So, the 10% of the actual sales price, that's only for our portion of the property.
That's correct. That's an individual listing agreement just for your property.
Great.
Can you enlighten us on who, what other folks, what other property owners you have lined up already that are adjacent to this property?
Okay, all of the Gretchen Chipperini's properties are already listed. I'm already in discussions with Wayne Chipperini on his property, as well as the Chinese restaurant that it resides right next to, is contiguous to Gretchen's property.
Right.
So I'm already in discussions with them on including them in the marketing plan, and they both expressed interest that they're looking.
So how big of a parcel then would that be if you combine all those?
If you combine all of them, you're close to 30 acres.
Thanks.
That would also include the road that goes in between.
Right.
So it would bring all of that together.
Rich?
Would you ever talk to Taco Bell and possibly see if they would want to relocate in the new,
I have had discussions with Taco Bell Corporate, just to talk about Groton in general. That is a land lease that they have there, so I could definitely, at the point when we get to discussions with the developer on site plan, we can definitely bring that into the discussion.
I've got another question. In the resolution, in addition to other incentives, what does that mean?
That 5,000 per other property adjacent that's in the contract.
Okay.
And the properties that, whatever's going to be included in the total
Okay,
development.
that's what that means.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, contiguous properties.
Greg and then Bonnie?
Do you have any current developers interested in this bigger property? And if so, what kind of project are they presenting to you?
I have spoken with several developers, about various parcels and about the
Right.
ability to be able to assemble properties there. There have been interest from residential developers, which, we've kind of said that's not really what the town is looking for that entire parcel. We're looking for a mixed use. So I'm, and I have had some discussions with some mixed use developers as well. I have an ICSC convention in New York the first weekend of December, which I have some meetings already set up for. So this will help to bring that as well, and that's why looking for the conceptual site, the conceptual plans will just show an idea. That's it will give the developers you know, show an idea of what Groton is looking for mixed-use
Thanks.
development.
Bonnie, do you want?
I'm just concerned, I think I'd be more in favor of this if you had the other adjacent properties under contract.
As far as Wayne Chaparini's,
Yeah, or then the Chinese restaurant.
And part of what we're coming up against is the deadline for going to the IC, whatever the abbreviation is.
yeah.
In New York coming up, right?
Gretchen's property is what provides that access to Route 12, which is the biggest piece. Wayne's property, in talking with developers, has pluses and minuses because it is fully built out. So, you know, it's how we integrate that into a mixed-use development to make sense for buying the building and land. But I am in discussions with Wayne, and I would have that firmed up before I go to ICSC so that we can identify exactly what properties are already currently listed.
I guess, do you think that she's ready to sell?
Yes. Yes.
Anybody else? So when you were here, I think you were here, I guess like maybe 4 months ago, 5 months ago.
Yes.
Have you made any progress since you were here last? You've been to some like some shows or some real estate?
I have had discussions. You know, obviously I have to be careful about, I'm not really marketing the property because I'm not under contract to market it. I've just expressed that there's an availability for that parcel, and I have interest from developers, but we haven't gotten into real detailed discussions yet.
Anybody else? Well, we have a motion and a second. Is there any, seeing no further discussion? All those in favor as read, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 6 to 1 to 0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Do good things.
See some of the reviews.
2017-0237 Groton Education Foundation Grant for the library. And this is for approval of a $1,000 grant from the Groton Education Foundation to be used to purchase board, book sets, and craft supplies to support the literacy-based intergenerational Book Buddies program.
Seconded.
I'll move. So moved.
Seconded.
I'll second.
All right, the motion and second. Bonnie, did you want to?
No, I was just gonna make a motion.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 7 to 0 to 0. 2017-0238 Osteoarthritis Action Alliance Grant. This is to approve a grant application of $5,000 for an Osteoarthritis Action Alliance Grant, with funds to be used for the Arthritis Foundation's Walk with Ease program. I guess so moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any matching funds for this, John? No?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 7 to 0 to 0.
No matching funds in either.
Are there any other business? Bonnie?
I've heard that Mystic Library has not received their September or October payment, and I wanted to know if there's any update on, are we not giving anybody?
And that's what, we had a brief discussion at the council that we're holding off till we hear what the state does.
So you withholding funds for all the agencies?
Other than the ones we absolutely have no choice of, but yes, they're all in a holding pattern.
Okay.
Dean?
Apropos of the William Seeley School property, I think we've all heard over the years people talking about, hey, what are you going to do with excess property? You guys keep collecting buildings, you don't do anything with them. And we all know that we're not simply sitting on them. Every building from years ago to just recently, and proposed buildings that we're going to let go of, everyone's got its own story. So I think we probably owe it to people. If we had some sort of report, maybe available down online that says, okay, town's excess properties, the school buildings, for example, here's what they are, here's what's been done, here's what we hope to do with it. Just so that's all, so if anybody says, hey, what are you doing with all those next buildings, I'll say, there's a link.
That's what the economic development new website's gonna
Right, they're
have
gonna
all that
show it.
information on there.
Okay.
And then their latest written report shows all the ones they're actively marketing.
Excellent.
Part of the hard part for me is being new is all these little like pocket parks and all these subdivisions and everything else, which is different than Michigan. Michigan subdivisions take care of their own little parks.
Yeah.
You know, so we have all these things. I don't know what's excess and what's not, but you know, they're really tied into other things. But all the ones actively being marketed is in the latest report that was just on our website and then in the town manager's report.
Just be a nice way to demonstrate the fact we are doing things. We don't,
And that website should be up by the end of the month.
Okay, thanks.
Karen?
Yeah, I just wanted to address the issue of the Groton Ambulance Building before we close this evening. I was absolutely shocked by the information that was in the day newspaper article on Saturday. I had already talked with the town manager when I noticed the big blue tarp on the roof for a long period of time, asking what was going on. Found out they were in the process of repairing the roof. But apparently all we're really doing is just kind of patching it up so that it can, putting a Band-Aid on it so it can get us for another couple of years. This disturbs me on so many levels. I mean, the idea that we have a town-owned building that we've been leasing to an organization initially going back, way back to 1980 for $1 a year, but the lease lapsed 23 years ago. How does that happen? And also, it's apparently very unclear as to who exactly is responsible for maintaining the building. It's very vague. Initially, the Ambulance Association was supposed to take care of it, and then at some point along the way, the town kind of took over some of it, but there's nothing in writing. You know, the system for exhausting vehicle fumes from the garage has been broken for 10 years and never fixed. A generator that they use for power outages leaks carbon monoxide into the building. And I think the thing that disturbs me the most is we have met with the Ambulance Association every year at budget time. We talk about everything under the sun. We go over their entire budget, and the last 3 budget sessions, not once has anyone from the Ambulance Association said, oh, by the way, our building is falling down, and we've got a mold problem, we've got poor air quality, it's too small. And when I got to the end of the article, and I thought it was almost comical that the building is falling down, but we're on top of getting the emergency lights in the boiler room and the garage bay fixed because the fire marshal cited them for that. So that's a top priority, but meanwhile, the structure's falling down, and I think it's unacceptable, and I think we need to do something about it going forward.
I think obviously the preferred is that I think we're going to eventually need to do a new building if we continue on with this type of partnership. But in the meantime, I've started writing a draft of the new contract with them, which will address maintenance. I've asked Taylor, the president there, I forget, is it Salvo? Is that his name? Taylor Salvo, the president there, to put a list of what repairs need to be done. I'd like to have a mold test too, just to see. Sometimes I've had other water issues in other buildings before, and sometimes people think it's black mold, and it's not always black mold, and it takes a certain amount to be unhealthy, but we need to figure that out. So that's going to be one thing I do. But so I'm on it, and we'll be addressing things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, sort of in the same vein with Councilor Morton's discussion is, you know, we were faced with the Par 4 contract, which it only got brought to us, you know, within like 2 months of a 10-year lease expiring, and you know, there's obviously something, you know, missing that we're not doing to be able to address these things far enough in advance to make a difference. So I think we need to look at those, you know.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, to answer the Councilor Morton's point, I'm never aware of the things. You're right, they come and ask, and I think the thing that I wrestle with is that they're a private entity, and they come to us with a profit and loss statement, and we give them you know, whatever the amount of money they ask for, we banter it about and look at it, and you're right, never once, I think the article was the first that any of us had heard about the issues. And, but furthermore, whose responsibility is it to pay for those things? And,
Well, the water damage is gonna be ours. I'm
What's
sure.
that?
Now that there's water damage, you know, I'm sure it'll be our responsibility for that part.
Yeah.
But general upkeep should be theirs in the new agreement.
I'd be interested just to know what, you know, in other municipalities, or how does the relationship with the ambulance work, and how are they a private entity on a leased land that the town owns? And, you know, I'd just like to understand more of how those things work, because there's something that doesn't seem to click right.
Well, for one thing, we all know, it's not like having a Dunkin' Donuts there. The ambulances, it'd be almost like having a fire company there. And I think in the end, this agreement, if you look at their financials, I don't think their financials really include giant capital improvements. I think John's right. Typically, a tenant in this situation will be responsible for the general upkeep, but capital improvements like replacing the roof, for example, usually go to the landlord, but it should be in writing. We should have something that lays that out. But I predict that their financials wouldn't, if we said, you know, they're in the building, they're performing a wonderful service, you know, let them take care of future capital outlays like a new roof and whatnot. My guess is their finances wouldn't allow them to do that. I think they've been operating without having to put money in for that because it's our building. So expect that kind of an outline going forward.
And that's how I've always seen it everywhere else.
Take it.
And that's how I've always seen it everywhere else.
Yeah.
But I will say, you know, hopefully as we get into, you know, using Provox to just keep us, you know, more in line with referrals and getting more organized. There's never been a lot of, you know, good, you know, pieces of leases are here and there, and I think we're getting more and more organized over time. Mark started that off, and Nikki's on that, and I'll keep a spreadsheet too, and I'll have Nikki get a copy. I've always kept a spreadsheet of all my leases as I learn what leases are out there, and I refer to it every year. And I actually like to walk the buildings that we, you know, that my municipality owns once a year, just to see what kind of condition they're in. And that would be my practice here, as I'm still learning what all's ours. But that will be my practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.